seated. Right. Well, first, let me say this. I know there's a lot of places you could be tonight. A lot of deadlines that are coming up. A lot of activities and things that are going on all over campus. And so I want to tell you thanks. Thanks for pausing to come over. And here's why I'm excited for you to be here. There's lots of times where we have speakers in from all over the place, hired guns who this is all they do. All they do is go around and speak. But there's something that's always unique and special when one of your peers comes and says, this is how God has chased me down over and over and over again. Even when I didn't realize it was God at work, this is where God found me. Okay? Your speaker tonight is Samara Smith. And I know she's no stranger to this community. She's prepared and she's prayed. Would you give her a warm pioneer welcome?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Are you guys nervous? Is that just me?
Come on.
Wow, I'm so thankful to be here tonight. As I've been preparing for tonight, I was just thinking about, where I was last year at this same time. And I never would have dreamed that I'd be right here talking to you guys right now. So just praise the Lord for what He's done in my life, and I'd like to share a bit of that story. Tonight, I'm not sharing my salvation story, but I am sharing a testimony of how the Lord has worked in my life. But I will tell you, when I was the ripe age of 5 years old is when I was baptized. I grew up in a family that had me in church since I came home from the hospital. So not your typical testimony, I guess, but that's kind of my life. So I'm just going to jump right in. That's okay with you guys? Good?
Yeah.
Woo! Okay, so when I was younger, I grew up with two older brothers who kind of shaped me into who I am today. The aggressive, not the most ladylike, very competitive person. My mom reminds me of that. But when I was a little girl, I sat around the dinner table with my family, and I listened to my brothers get lectured about their bad grades or about their bad behavior at school, jumping over lunch tables, not having the best performance even in a sports game. We were a big sports-oriented family, very competitive. And I remember hating the feeling to be in that room of seeing my parents being disappointed. And I said, I am not going to be that child. I will be the golden child. I will do all the right things. I will never get anything less than an A. I'm going to make all the baskets. I decided that the equation for proud parents, no disappointment, was good grades, doing well in my sports, and having good behavior all the time. Just like any kid, you want your parents to be proud of you, right? So that felt pretty normal. I transferred these same ideas into my understanding of my relationship with God. I thought that if I do things well and I do things right, then He will love me. And if I don't, there's consequences. So I believe that being a Christian should provide a life of ease and a life of success. And I thought that if people saw my struggles, then they would, basically it would invalidate the hope of Christ. And they would think, why is she struggling? Christians aren't supposed to struggle. So I worked hard to reach my goals, and when things got rough, I kept it to myself. I didn't want anyone to know that I had struggles. So success came fairly easy to me as a kid. I was pretty focused and driven in my sports and my academics, and it helps that I came from a small town where just put in a little work and you're the star of the show. I was used to being on the starting team for everything by just walking into practice. I used to prank my parents, so I thought I was pranking them. I'd get in the car after a tryout and be like, oh, I got cut, and they're like, really? That's who I was. I mean, I was a baller, okay? Like, I had skill, I'm telling you. Watch out. Just a little transition. So since I was a kid, I wanted to attend this school, and I would be surprised if any of you can relate to that. I think most of you probably heard about this school later in your high school career or got recruited for sports or your musical abilities, and I'm so glad that that's your story and that you made it here. I love hearing how people made it here. But that's not my story. My grandma, my dad, and my uncle, and many other people that I know came here. My dad and my uncle played basketball, so they were like the coolest guys ever, you know, and I wanted to be that person too. I also heard about this place going to church camp all throughout my youth, about how this is like, MNU is like church camp, just a couple of classes. It's gonna be like fun, and like you praise Jesus, and then you do a little bit of work, and it's more fun. And I'm like, yes, that's what I want, you know? This is a school for me, right? Yeah, they really got me there, but, yeah, so everything sounded perfect. I mean, this was like the golden, like, this is my dream. I remember being in 7th grade and writing a paper about my dreams and my goals for my future, and it was graduate, or you know, make it through middle school and high school with all A's, graduate the top of my class, and play basketball at MNU. Well, I did it, and what now, you know? So yeah, I also heard stories, my dad's glory stories of all his basketball stories and things with his friends, most things you get kicked out for now. Yeah. So a lot to look forward to, a lot to dream about. But my first semester at MNU, which was last year, everything was flipped upside down. It wasn't the dreamland I always thought it would be. Things started to get difficult. You know, at the beginning it was fun, you know, welcome week, I was like, Root Beer Fest, yes! Like, let's spend all night playing volleyball, let's not get any sleep, and let's go to Taco Bell after and ruin our digestive systems. You know what I'm talking about, you know. But welcome week was soon over, and I actually had like due dates. And I was like, oh, this is like, it's not like just fun all the time. This is actually like, I'm paying to be here. This is supposed to be preparing me for my future. And then preseason for basketball started. And I noticed I wasn't in the small town anymore. And there were people better than me, in fact, much better than me. And I was very far from the best. And I didn't know how to feel about that, honestly. I was pretty used to being like, yeah, Samara Smith, yeah, you know me, yeah. You know, so it was really strange for me trying to actually, I had to like build who I was all over again. It soon changed from a fun after-school activity to like a full-time job, where my job was to impress the coaches, perform, do not mess up, because you will ruin your chances of succeeding, and that is what is important. I truly found my value in performance. If I did well in practice, it was a great day. If I did bad in practice, it was a terrible day. It really determined my mood all the time. I no longer, you know, eventually, I no longer felt grateful to even be on the team. I thought, why am I here? I am not good enough to be here. Look at all these people around me that are so much better. Like, I must have tricked these coaches. Like, I must have drank some sort of like, you know, Michael's special stuff from Space Jam. Like, I must have drank something like that to where I was like on top. Because I'm telling you, I missed maybe 2 baskets on my visit. I mean, like, they probably thought I was all-star. And so I actually felt sorry to the coaches for not being what they thought I was. Yeah. So instead of keeping my frustrations, my struggles with basketball within the lines of the court, it started flooding into the rest of my life, and everything became more stressful and more stressful. And each mistake I made in practice or in a game, I just thought of everything going wrong, and it was the end of the world. I knew that I thought that every move I made was either a step toward or away from those varsity minutes, which I thought would make my parents proud, which in turn would make me happy, right? All these doubts that I had were piling up, and I began having what I called freak out moments. I labeled them as asthma attacks, because I do have asthma. But, so, basically this is how it would go. I would make a series of mistakes in practice or a game, and I would be a little upset after the first one, like, okay, get back, you know, get the rebound this time, it'll be okay. I would miss the rebound, or I would get called for a foul, I'd get a little bit more upset, a little more, like I messed up again. was usually the third or fourth time I made a mistake where the world came crashing down. In those moments, the stress had like piled up so drastically that tears began to well up in my eyes. My breathing became shorter, until it was gone. And nothing else mattered except getting to my inhaler immediately, because that was the only thing that would make me take a deep breath and calm down. That felt really nice. Yeah. So, I do have asthma, but deep down I knew that what was happening was not related to asthma, because it was all sudden and there was actually no wheezing. But no one else knew that, so I used my inhaler. I brought it with me. I used my inhaler to make an excuse for what was going on. I didn't know exactly what I was experiencing, but I knew something was wrong and something needed to be done. But if I admitted something was wrong, that meant I wasn't perfect and I didn't live up to these standards that I needed to live up to in order to make myself happy, others happy, God happy. So I was like, oh yeah, it's just my asthma, like don't worry, like I'm dying and I can't breathe and I'm falling and I'm like, ugh. But it's just my asthma, like I'm fine, Well, one day, the athletic trainer was in the gym and she saw one of these freak out moments, as I call them. And she came up and talked to me and was like, hey, what's going on? And so once I kind of gained my composure again, I explained what was happening, how I felt in that moment. And I was like, oh, but it's just my asthma flaring up, as if I can tell the medical professional. But she looked me in the eyes with concern and was like, Samara, you are having panic attacks. That's not asthma. And I knew she was right, but I asked her to not call it that. Because I felt that giving it a label gave it like power over me. And I didn't want that. That made me feel weak, helpless, and pitiful. Like I really didn't have things together. And even in this time when someone pointed out, like, you need help, like you're not okay, I was still like, no, like, it's okay, I'm okay. And since I was aiming for this perfection, each mistake that I made felt like the heaviest weight, because I was carrying it all on my own instead of giving it to the Lord. And yeah, I was struggling. I was struggling for a while, and no one knew, because I just wore this mask of I'm Samara and I'm funny and I'm awesome, and like I'm not struggling. I don't struggle. It's not something I do. But I was struggling, and yeah, funny. This isn't funny, but I realized soon after this encounter with the athletic trainer that I was overusing my inhaler, which you're only supposed to take 2 puffs of this every 4 hours as needed. I was taking about 3 to 6 every 2 hours, so triple the dose, half the time. Yeah. Not the best recipe for success. So after doing some research, I actually discovered that overuse of this inhaler right here can cause increased frequency of asthma symptoms, worsening asthma control, increased asthma attacks, dependence on the medicine, dry mouth, tremors, chest pain, and a fast or irregular heartbeat. I don't know if you noticed, but none of those are good. So the more I used this thing, the worse my symptoms became, and the more I needed it. The very thing I used to hide what was really going on in my life is the thing that was making it worse. Suddenly, all I wanted was to quit basketball. Just be done with it. If I quit this, don't ever tell anyone I was struggling, I'll be fine. The world is balanced again. It's okay. But there was a problem, because this is how I made my parents proud. My performance was how I brought this joy to them, or so I thought. So I went home for Christmas break, and I knew that my parents were gonna know something was off, and they were gonna ask, but I was just like, maybe, they won't, and I'll just like pretend I'm fine, even though it wasn't, because at this time, for the first time in my life, bubbly, joyful, goofy Samara, I was experiencing depression for the first time ever. I didn't want to leave my room. Some days I didn't want to get out of bed. I was losing my appetite. I was skipping church for several weeks at a time, when in the past I had been a faithful attendant. That was very out of character for me, and my parents did notice. They were asking about school and about basketball, and I couldn't hide anymore. The weight was getting to be unbearable. I mean, dang it, I was getting to the point I couldn't breathe. So I told them the truth that I was struggling so much to the point that I couldn't breathe. The truth that I couldn't do it all on my own, that I did not feel good enough anymore. That things were happening out of my control that I thought were in my control. I was so afraid to tell them these things. I thought they would be upset, expecting more from me. But their responses were tender and sensitive, similar to this upside down kingdom we've been talking about all semester. You're welcome, They reassured me that we are going to face struggles in this world, and that we don't have to go it all alone, that we have a God that is He's everywhere, and He's all-knowing, and He loves us. And I really thought that my parents would not have a good reaction to me having like mental health issues, because I thought I was better than that, I guess. But my dad kind of pointed out, he loves analogies, but he was like, Samara, if you had a broken arm, what would you do? And I was like, go to the doctor, duh, like, that's pretty obvious. And he's like, okay, so if your mind is sick, then you should talk to someone, right? And the truth is, yes, that is correct, you should. So that was just something I needed to hear from my dad, and my mom, who I thought were gonna be the ones that were like, no, you know? But they didn't do that. My dad also told me stories of his college experience that I had never heard before, struggles of pain, stories of struggle and pain, and how he nearly quit his basketball team. And I'm like, Chris the Animal Smith, what? Just knowing that the man that I look up to, that's like, he's done everything perfectly and he is the model for my life, knowing that he messed up too and that he struggled too, I felt like it gave me permission to get to struggle. So through these conversations, I realized that my parents never had a standard of perfection for me. I did that to myself. They wanted the best for me, and I realized later on that when they were lecturing my brothers, it wasn't because they hated them like I thought. It was because they loved them and they were looking out for them and they wanted the best for them. I had created these false expectations for my own life in my own mind, and I kept them to myself, so no one even knew. As I realized this truth about my parents, I also realized that God doesn't expect perfection from me either, or any of you. In fact, there's only ever been one perfect person, and that is His one and only Son, Jesus Christ. I've been trying to save myself by my good deeds, my perfect execution of every task, my righteousness, and I forgot that I was imperfect in need of a Savior, which I'm sure was very obvious to everyone else. My sense of failure while at school had clouded my vision of purpose. I forgot why I felt led to attend this school, which was actually because when I was 12, I felt a call into missions, and I felt that this was the best place to pursue that calling. So I had my whole focus on this one thing that wasn't even the reason I was here, and I could not see it at all. And so my dad reminded me of those reasons that I felt I should be here. And he challenged me to pick a side. He said, quit this basketball team, or go back, understand your role, and do that to the best of your ability. So I decided to return. I came back from Christmas break a week early, and I decided to embrace my role of being a good teammate. Like, you know what? I may not be like dunking, not that anyone on our women's team is, but I may not be making the star plays or going, highlight reel, but I can be a good teammate, and I still have a role and a purpose on this team, and they need me to cheer them on. So, I changed my perspective. I went back cheering louder than ever, picking up my teammates when they were down, and started wearing sunglasses. tears while they last. Sorry, okay. I was able to find joy again through this new purpose. I realized that even when the coaches signed me, they probably were like, this is a starter. That's not what their mindset was, you know? And so why did I have that mindset? I don't know. But yeah, I was able to find joy again. I saw my role as one that served my teammates instead of myself, which really reflects the love of Christ. It's a serving love. And but yeah, I saw hope again. I saw joy again. I looked forward to game days because I got to cheer my teammates on like a crazy person, and they probably were like, we don't know her. But I know deep down they were like happy, you know? But those were the days that I used to dread because I was like, this is a show for the whole world to see that I am a failure because I didn't even take off my warm-up, you know? But it changed. The Lord changed my perspective and showed me how to be a servant and how, honestly, I feel like when you serve people, you actually feel more loved by that action than being served. On a side note, I didn't even put that in my notes. But yeah, this transformation was truly only by the grace of God. I believe that He used my parents to speak truth into me. And I can't say I've never had another panic attack again, but I can say that I now have tools to combat those. I typically try and whisper scripture to myself, which helps me to breathe again and return to calm. Just trusting in God and resting in His presence to bring me back to where I need to be. So these moments are no longer the end of the world, but they're actually reminders that I need to lean fully on Christ instead of my own strength, which is, I need to get in the way of that. So after this season was over, our team attended PEDS, which is like an all sports awards banquet thing. And I got awarded the most valuable teammate, which I was not expecting, but I was like, okay, no, that's kind of cool. Yeah, at the beginning of the season, I would have loved to receive like highest scoring player or whatever. But at that time, like, I don't know, it just touched my heart that I got to touch my teammates' hearts, if that makes sense. I didn't score the most points. I didn't have the most rebounds or assists. Didn't make any game-winning shots. But I took hold of the opportunity that God laid in front of me to support and encourage those around me to the best of my ability, to love them as God loves them in their ups and their downs. The hardships did not disappear, but God met me right where I was at and offered to hold my hand through it all. He showed me another way to live, one that no matter the circumstance, I now choose to praise Him. I may not always be happy, but I do always have the joy of the Lord, which is my strength. I still fall short, but Christ's power is made known in my weakness, not my perfection, which does not exist. I'd like you all to think and reflect about some things. Do you remember the 7th grade me that dreamed of this life? What happens when you get everything that you ever wanted and it's not enough? What are you going to do? Are you going to put your head down in defeat, or will you lift your head up to Christ? What is the inhaler in your life? What are you hiding behind, depending on or turning to that you believe will comfort you? Whose standards are you living by? The world's, your own, your parents, your friends, or God's? Where in your life can you be a good teammate to others? Whether on your team or just in life. Are you accepting God's grace, or are you trying to do it all on your own? Who do you surround yourself with? Are they the kind of people who will point you back to the truth of Christ? If you are struggling, what is keeping you from talking about it? I encourage you to give it to God and to find someone who you trust that you can be vulnerable with, whether that's a friend, parent, professor, coach, etc. And share with them what is going on in your life. This is a community that loves and supports one another in good times and bad. One that desires to share the love of Christ with each other. I think Andy's going to come up now. Reverend Andy Cook.